Tales of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was one of the best adaptations of the Ninja Turtles series in years. Amazing stories, great homages to horror films and other pieces of media, and the show felt like a true love letter to all things Ninja Turtles. So, how did we go from an amazing adaptation like that to this? Yeah, just one look at the promotional art and I knew it was going to be bad, but I gave it the benefit of a doubt. There was still a chance that it could be a new yet amazing follow-up to the 2012 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So I checked out the first episode and I'm honestly very conflicted. The first episode of the show made me realize some things that made me change just how I viewed this new series. Now, does that make this new series good or bad? Well, let's dive right in to see the cause of my conflictions. This is Rise of the Ninja Turtles. Unlike most Ninja Turtle adaptations, this show doesn't open up by telling us the origin story of the Ninja Turtles, which to some, it doesn't seem like that bad of a change. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is a vastly popular series that has been around for decades, so chances are a good chunk of the viewers watching these adaptations already know the origins of the Ninja Turtles. But the problem is that this show is trying to be as new and different as it possibly can be. I mean, it's a reboot that's trying to completely change the story of the Ninja Turtles rather than relying on the source material like previous incarnations. So if you're doing a new take on the Ninja Turtles, then it wouldn't hurt to explain their origin stories. And I know that we may get to see their origins revealed later on the show, but I just find that funny how the 2012 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, obviously made for Ninja Turtle fans, opened up with their origin story, and yet this new reboot just drops us on in some random plot. Speaking of which, this episode opens up with two strange men chasing an unknown creature, and it just teleports away. Well, that's the end of this scene. We then cut to the Ninja Turtles, and it's at this point that a lot of things have dawned on me. One is that while I heavily hated the art style shown in the concept art, it's actually starting to grow on me. And when the characters are in motion, it actually looks decent enough, and it can be very expressive at times. This, of course, helps with point number 2. The animation of this show is actually astounding. While I have mixed feelings about a lot of aspects from the show, one thing I will praise from the rooftops is the animation. And while the art style isn't that great still, it really does help the animation look as expressive and fluid as possible. So, while 2 of my previous concerns with the show have been disproven, there are some other concerns that the show already proved to be much worse than I feared. So, let's start with the elephant in the room. The characters' personalities. Or rather, personality. As every turtle, and even April, all share the same personality of being a fun-loving comedic character. When I first saw the trailer, I thought that Leo was changed to the comedic relief, Donnie was dumbed down, and Mikey had no personality at all, and Ralph was the serious one, but no. As it turns out, they are all the same. I can understand wanting to change the brothers' personalities to shake things up. After all, this show is trying to be as different as possible from the other Turtles shows, which leads to my second issue, the show's writing. I knew it was going to be a more comedic show, so I needed to hamper my expectations a bit, but even then, the writing of the show just disappointed. A lot of jokes in the show are a miss, and even when they do hit, it's not very hard. The story feels uncaring and the character dialogue isn't much better than their personalities. But I've just started this episode and I'm already complaining too much, so let's just move along with the story. After the Turtles' introduction, we are introduced to April. And some people may have a problem with them making her black, but I will accept this as a way to make up for what they did to Baxter Stockman in the 80s cartoon. So, after they meet up, the gang decides to take the party elsewhere, but Raphael spots the teleporting animal at a nearby construction zone and decides to get a closer look. It doesn't take long for the 2 men from earlier to show up, and when the Turtles refuse to hand the animal over, the men start using what I assume is some dark magic to transform into horrifying creatures, which means it's time for some amazing action scenes. And while this fight does give some amazing visuals, it's mostly a comedic fight to show us that the Turtles kinda suck at martial arts. But I will say this scene does have some of the funniest scenes in the entire episode.
I got my rare skills!
Anyways, The Turtles lose the fight. The dog and April get kidnapped, and the Turtles return home to formulate a plan. And this is where we are introduced to Master Splinter, who's by far the absolute worst version of Splinter. From having one of the worst character designs in the show to a terrible personality. Heck, he doesn't even know the Turtles' names, he just calls them all by what color they're wearing. He's also portrayed as a very lazy person, which does explain why the Turtles know almost nothing about combat. So, yeah, while I can't forgive the show for a lot of changes, the character change of Master Splinter is just too bad, even for me to forgive. But we don't see him, as long as the Turtles take what they need to open the portal that April had fallen into. And as it turns out, this portal leads to not Dimension X, not some alien world, but rather a secret underground city below New York. The more this show goes on, the more confusing the plot gets. The Turtles manage to find April in this underground city, and they follow her to a secret lab where we meet the big villain of the show, called Totally Original Villain, who in no way is trying to be Shredder and failing miserably at it. So as it turns out, the animal from before had a bottle of mutagen around its neck that this not Shredder needed. What's interesting is that this villain's plan is to mass produce the mutagen to have his legion of mosquitoes suck it up so that they can rise to the surface and mutate the people of New York. What's interesting about this is that I'm starting to see the big difference in the lore of the show compared to the others. And while the other Ninja Turtles show lean towards a sci-fi feel with Krang, Dimension X, and the mutagen, the Rise of the Ninja Turtles feels less sci-fi inspired, and rather its plot leaned towards magic. From the dark magic transformation to the magic portal, to even the villain of the show. I kind of like this separation between the show's lores. There are some neat things they can do with it, leaning more towards the mystical arts. Neat things I doubt the show will take advantage of, but at least the doors are open for them to do so. Anyways, the Turtles know that they have to stop this evil plan, but realize that they are way out of their league. Luckily, April just so happens to know a secret room full of weapons for them to use, which even had 4 oddly placed and glowy weapons that each fit their own fighting styles. I would go more in depth on that, but screw it, I just want to get to the fight. Just seeing this animation makes me forgive the past 16 minutes of this show, but sadly, it has to end and cut back to the plot. We learn the villain's name is Baron Draxum, and for some reason, he has a crush on Raphael. I should say more on that, but we cut back to another amazing fight. However, in this fight, we find out that each of the Turtles' weapons have some magic ability to them, like Leo's sword allowing him to teleport, or Mikey's nunchucks turning into laughing fireballs. But just like that, all the fun had the end, and cut back to the plot. The villain's machine ends up breaking down after Mikey screwed it up. He gets crushed under rock, and the animal teleports the Ninja Turtles back to New York. The day is saved, and the Turtles are excited about their first win. Although the villain's swarm of mosquitoes flees the underground world and fly into New York City, and the episode just ends. And that was the Rise of the Ninja Turtles. While I think the 2012 Ninja Turtles is still the better show, I'm growing more fonder of this new version. Like I said, the comedy is a miss for the most part. I am not very fond of the character changes, but the animation itself is so astoundingly good that it almost makes up for all the terrible things this show does. And while this is the first episode, and it wasn't great, it does have an excuse for it. This episode feels like it's trying to set up a lot of future events in the show, with the villain having mentioned a past event involving mutation, the villain's lair having 4 identical weapons the Turtle use, Splinter having a device that can be used to enter the underground city, and how painfully obvious that they make it that the Turtles need more training. While the show does have a lot of problems, it does make up for them in a lot of areas. I was a bit harsh on the show when I first saw it, and after seeing it in action, I actually believe that it can turn into something great. I have been wrong for judging series way too soon in the past. I believe that Chowder was going to turn out terrible, yet it's one of my favorite Cartoon Network shows. And I really hated the promotional designs of Phineas and Ferb, yet I watched every episode of that series. So I hope I'm wrong for judging it too early. I really do hope that the series will expand upon what this first episode does so well and fix what issues it has as the show progresses. And I hope all of you will give it a fair show, just like I will. Anyways, thank you guys for watching this review. Be sure to like and subscribe to help support future content in this channel, and I'll see you guys in the next video.